The Samaria reached Liverpool on September 16, 1943, and the regiment moved out to the nearest operational railhead for transportation south. Early the following morning, the paratroopers arrived at a Victorian-era station in the Kennet Valley, 68 miles due east of London. In the darkness, a sergeant from the Divisional Advance Party welcomed everyone to Hungerford, emphasizing the word hunger before directing each battalion to its designated trucks. From here, the 3rd Battalion was driven a short distance to a camp in the picturesque village of Ramsbury. Situated on the northern edge of town, beside Love's Lane, Camp Ramsbury consisted of 17 sparse wooden barracks and a Nissen hut, which became Colonel Wolverton's HQ. Adjacent to the main entrance of the camp and connected by a tall hedge-lined path was Parliament Peace. The imposing 16th-century manor house had already been requisitioned as a billet, mess, and club facility for the junior officers. Colonel Wolverton was allocated accommodation a couple of miles east of the village at Crowwood House, which at the time was the home of Robina Clifton Brown and her 3 teenage children. The next day, Don Ross was up early to blow reveille, closely followed by assembly. Don would soon become a celebrity among the local children, who developed a fascination for his bugle calls, which could be clearly heard across the village. With the entire battalion now formed up on the grass parade ground, Colonel Wolverton explained that they were in the county of Wiltshire and that there were strict protocols governing how they behaved toward the local population. Everyone was issued a booklet entitled A Short Guide to Great Britain that outlined British customs and rationing and the complicated British currency of pounds, shillings, and pence. The enlisted men's mess hall was situated just down the road from the camp in an old schoolhouse along Back Lane. When Ed and Paul Simrell returned from breakfast on their first morning in Ramsbury, Wolverton advised them that they, along with several other senior NCOs and officers, were going to be billeted in private homes around the village. I guess it was all to do with integration. Paul and I were sent to the Blaine family, who owned Hill's grocery store in the High Street. As we were standing in the hallway, it quickly became obvious that Tom and Gwen Blaine were somewhat wary and needlessly overprotective of their 2 daughters, Joan, 12, and Margaret, 14. Mr. Blaine showed us upstairs to a room that, much to our surprise, had already been furnished with beds by the Army. From their bedroom window, Ed and Paul had an impressive view across the high street toward the square and the enormous elm tree, whose ancient gnarled branches partially obscured the upmarket Bell Hotel. Despite being given keys to both the front door and bedroom, we weren't allowed access to the family bathroom, even though it was only across the landing. Instead, we were asked to use the ablutions over the road at the Memorial Hall or the showers at the camp. Although Simrell was single, I never saw him go out on a date, and despite the constant rhetoric about Panama, he never once mentioned his family, although I often asked. On the other hand, he always took an interest in my home life, especially when I was writing to Ida and my sisters, or when I had to co-sign the papers allowing my mother to sell off Dad's last few remaining assets. During the last week of September, all the S3 departments gathered together for a divisional meeting hosted by Regimental HQ at its base at Littlecote House in preparation for the regiment's first parachute exercise. Ed was at the meeting with Charles Carman when Hank Hanna, now the Regimental S3, produced several large-scale maps covering Littlecote and its surrounding area. The detailed ordnance survey sheets caused quite a stir, and Hanna revealed that he had been in London over the weekend visiting Covent Garden when he had stumbled across Stanford's hiking and map